Hello everyone, I'm Peter. Welcome to our space for true stories. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We will select the best comments to send to the original poster op of the real Reddit story. We hope your insights help them overcome their challenges. Thank you for being part of our community. Please sit back and enjoy today's story. I promised my dying friend that I would visit her disabled son regularly, but now my husband wants to move across the country, and I feel so terribly guilty. When I was in college, I took a job caring for a middle-aged disabled man named John, the son of an elderly couple, in the afternoons and some weekends. John couldn't take care of himself and needed constant supervision, but he was an easygoing person. Growing up with two severely disabled siblings, I was comfortable being around John. I didn't have any formal caregiving experience, but Jan and Jerry, John's parents, had retired by the time I met them, so I was rarely left alone with John for extended periods. They shouldered the heavier tasks of his care, but appreciated having me around so they could run errands, take walks, nap, things that offered them some much-needed respite. Taking care of John was essentially a full-time job, and my presence significantly lightened their load. They were incredibly kind people, paying me generously and treating me as if I were part of their family. Over time, I grew very close to Jan, Jerry, and John. I started bringing them meals weekly, and we would eat together. It became much more than just a paid job. While they continued to compensate me fairly, the bond we shared grew beyond financial exchange. We became family. It was during these shared meals and afternoons that I came to know the true depth of Jan and Jerry's love for their son, and the lengths they went to ensure his well-being. This arrangement continued for about 4 years. After graduating from college, I stopped working for them officially, but remained a frequent presence in their lives. Around this time, Jerry passed away, leaving Jan to carry the heavy burden of John's care alone. Despite the loss, our bond remained strong, and I continued to assist Jan part-time while balancing a full-time job. John was Jan and Jerry's only child. All of their siblings had either passed away or lived far away, making it difficult for Jan to find the kind of support she needed. Though they had a community of friends through their church, the care John required was more than they could manage. About a year after Jerry's death, Jan was diagnosed with cancer. Despite her diagnosis, she continued to care for John full-time while undergoing treatment. I was constantly amazed by her strength and resilience. Even as her health worsened, she held on to the responsibility of John's care until she could no longer physically manage it. Eventually, Jan made the heart-wrenching decision to place John in a full-time assisted living facility. It was one of the most painful choices she had to make, but her body was failing, and there was no other option. During one of my last visits with her, Jan confided her deepest fear, that after her death, John would have no visitors and would become lonely and depressed. She asked me if I would continue to visit him regularly after she was gone. It was her only dying wish. I looked into her eyes, seeing the weight of her love for her son, and I promised her that I would. Jan passed away more than 3 years ago, and I've kept that promise ever since. I visit John's care facility, which is over an hour away, at least twice a week. I know that keeping this commitment is important, not just for Jan's memory, but for John's emotional well-being. He has no other regular visitors. Occasionally, once every 6 months or so, a friend from church might stop by, but otherwise, I am the only one who comes to see him. John is surrounded by caregivers, but they're responsible for dozens of other patients. The facility he lives in is understaffed, and many of the other residents are less friendly and kind-hearted than John. He struggles to make friends, and without someone like me regularly visiting, I fear he would lose the personal connection that makes him feel like more than just another patient in a system. But now my husband has been offered a once-in-a-lifetime job opportunity that would require us to move across the country. We're talking thousands of miles away. I'm overjoyed for him. It's the kind of chance that doesn't come along often, but at the same time, I feel like I'm drowning in guilt. If it weren't for John, I'd be excited about the move. But I can't escape this gnawing feeling that I'm abandoning him. Without me, he'll be alone. Yes, the staff takes care of him, but they don't know him like I do. They don't have the same emotional connection. John will be left without visitors, and I'm scared that he'll slip into depression and isolation. I've been agonizing over this decision. I know that refusing to move with my husband could jeopardize our marriage, but I also can't ignore the promise I made to Jan. Is there any way I can transfer John to a facility in our new city? Are there legal avenues I can explore? Unfortunately, money is extremely tight. I can't afford to hire a lawyer, nor can I take on any personal financial responsibility for John. But I feel trapped. I don't know what to do. I can't bring myself to break the promise I made to my dying friend, but at the same time, I can't ignore the future my husband and I have ahead of us. How do I choose between honoring a vow to someone who is no longer here and supporting the man I've committed my life to? TLDR, I promised my dying friend that I would continue visiting her disabled son in his care facility after she passed away. I am his only visitor. Now, my husband has received an incredible job offer across the country, and I can't bear the thought of breaking my promise. I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support after sharing my story. I didn't expect such a huge response. Many of you helped me see that it would be unreasonable to put my life on hold entirely for John, no matter how much I care about him. The advice and suggestions you all offered were invaluable. Several of you suggested that I could maintain my connection with John by setting up regular video calls, something I hadn't thought of before. I decided to purchase a tablet for John so we could schedule bi-weekly video calls. This way, even if I couldn't physically be there, I could still stay in touch and let him know he's not forgotten. We started practicing video calls before I left. It was harder than I thought. John didn't seem to connect with me through the screen. He got distracted easily and seemed agitated. It was heartbreaking to see how frustrated he became when he couldn't understand that it was me on the other side of that small screen. I began to doubt whether this would work, and on my last visit before the move, my heart ached as I hugged him tightly and kissed his cheek. John wasn't usually one for physical affection, but he accepted my embrace that day, which made it all the more bittersweet. I gave him a care package filled with his favorite candies and treats, and he smiled. But as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't doing enough, that I was somehow failing him. For the next few months, we stuck to our bi-weekly video calls, but about 2 months ago, I got a phone call from the care facility. John had passed away. He had choked on a plastic game piece. The news shattered me. I had known John for so long, and he was such a special part of my life. To know he was truly gone felt surreal. Writing about it now still feels like a shock, like I'm in some strange dream where everything feels wrong. I find comfort in the fact that Jan and Jerry believed in heaven, and I like to imagine that they're all together now, happy and at peace. But I miss all three of them so much. John, with his quiet sweetness, Jan with her unshakable love for her son, and Jerry, who had a warmth that made you feel like you were home whenever you were with him. I'm grateful to this community, and to my licensed therapist, who's been helping me through this, for all the support you've given me. I know this is a sad update, but I felt it was only right to thank everyone who commented on my original post. You all helped me in ways I can't fully express. TLDR, John has passed away.